Okay, perfect, good. Awesome. Okay, so we're so excited today with us. We have Tyson Winder. He has been our part of our faculty member as our in our first last semester, and we're super excited to have him here with us. And we'll have Tyson introduce yourself for us.
Sounds great. Yeah, as Porter said, I'm Tyson Winder. I grew up in a small southern Utah town called Hurricane, Utah, and I currently live here in that same town. Married my wife, who's also from here. We've got two amazing young daughters, 5 and 3-year-old daughters. They're awesome. I did my undergraduate degree at what was Dixie State University at the time, graduate school at the University of Utah, as a physical therapist, doctor of physical therapy, and then did a residency, orthopedic residency after that with another company up in Murray, Utah, and bounced around to one other job in St. George, and now I'm with Intermountain Health and Hurricane. So I've practiced with them for a little over 3 years, and then I teach part time with the University of Utah's DPT program here in St. George. So, and as part of that, a disclosure that what I say isn't a representation of either Intermountain Health or the University of Utah's programs or their systems. I'm just providing my own personal experience and what I see here. So, but I really appreciate you guys inviting me on, and excited to share some of what I hopefully know. So,
Well, we're super excited to have you, Tyson, and thanks again for being willing to pop on and share some thoughts and insights. And so, kind of to get the ball rolling, if you were to start over as like a pre-physical therapy student in your bachelor's degree, what would you do differently?
um, that's a great question. I think one of the big things I probably would say was getting a wide variety of exposures can be really helpful. For me, when I was trying to decide whether or not I wanted to move towards physical therapy, I set up some shadowing experiences with different professions. One of those was dentistry, because there was a time where I really wanted to be a dentist. And I went and watched my first root canal, and it was so smelly and gross that I was like, I can't do this. A lot of respect to dentists, but it just wasn't for me. And so I think getting some of those opportunities to shadow, watch, PT's work or watch other professionals work, and that really kind of helped me narrow down my commitment for the profession, what I wanted to do, and what I felt like I could do within the space of the PT profession. So I think getting those shadowing experiences can be really helpful. Um, and I think just a wide array of experiences to be able to draw from is very beneficial. It's one of the things as a PT is that you're going to encounter so many people from different walks of life and different experiences. And sounds kind of crazy, but even the experience that I had prior to PT school when I was in my undergrad as a welder and a mechanic, like there's so many patients that I can have conversations with now because I have that background that, just having a wealth of different experiences, you can connect with a lot of different people. And I think that carries that therapeutic alliance much further than it would otherwise.
I think that's huge. The different experiences that we have to really be able to connect. As you said, you mentioned therapeutic alliance, and I think as for those who don't know, the therapeutic alliance is the kind of the connection that we want as a provider to our patients. And that's huge through the different experiences that we have. And that's why it's okay to have that variety. I think sometimes students forget that you just kind of have to fit the perfect mold to be that physical therapist when really it's about being you and being able to experience everything that you can. Really will help you connect with patients and to therefore be a better provider. Um, and so, kind of adding with that, what's kind of a habit or skill that was able to help you be successful, maybe in your bachelor's degree and even as a student and even in residency, that really kind of would be one main skill that helped you succeed through your schooling and now as a physical therapist?
Um, I think a couple of things I might kind of couple these together. So I'm not always the most humble person, but I try to be. I think humility and coachableness is a big part of that. I also think communication skills is a big part. And having the ability to work with another, in the case of, I think of a lot of like residency, for example, or even encounters or times in school where, you go out of your way to seek some feedback from an instructor. Hey, am I performing this technique correctly? What can I do better on this next exam? Are there certain things that I should be studying harder? Are there resources that you're aware of so I can look into this more? And you're asking those kind of questions just to try to glean as much information and wealth of knowledge from the people around you as you can. and then taking that feedback not from like a position where you feel personally attacked or anything else, but like, hey, I think this person's got my best interest and they're trying to help me. And so I'm going to listen to what they have to say. I'm going to go try to figure it out for myself now. And residency is really where you hit a lot of that. Working closely with mentors, you're treating patients at the same time, and you've got all of these opportunities to really kind of critically evaluate your thinking skills, your ability to communicate, your ability to perform tests and assess patients. And it's hard, but it's also super, super rewarding. And I feel like it just refines you so much. So I think that element of like coachableness, humility, along with, fostering a really good ability to communicate is critical.
I really appreciate you saying that, Tyson. I kind of as we were preparing for this, I was thinking about just what you've taught me in the last semester, and that was one thing that hit home with me. Sometimes when we were practicing skills and things for tests and measures, I kind of just had it and just went through the motion. And one of the times you kind of pulled me aside and were like, "Hey, like one step at a time, take this slow, like this is good practice for you, and like this is to help you get better at these skills." And that kind of really humbled me and helped me see things in a new perspective, and I'm grateful for that. Like I'm grateful you were willing to, that you've put in the time, that you've been coached a lot, and then you were willing to help coach me. And I was super grateful for that this last semester, and just wanted to say thank you as well. So
I
yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's rewarding for me to help and be able to do that. So,
Yeah.
And not to go totally off the rails here from that, but you mentioned residency and how that was a big part of, shaping those skills that you've been able to develop. I guess when I was a pre-PT student, and even still now, I'm not too sure if I want to do a residency. I didn't really know what residency actually was when I was applying to school. So maybe could you expound on who is a residency good for? What is a residency? Just kind of a basics on residency.
yeah, uh, there's a lot of different residencies depending on like specialty areas. And so the for me, like orthopedics was always kind of the area that I wanted to practice in, orthopedics and maybe sports. And so I'd kind of tossed around the idea of doing those two residencies. I think right around the time I graduated, there was a residency at the University of Utah, an orthopedic residency, and then there was one at another company called Hand and Ortho, which wasn't, as much a hand specialty. I could have gone on and done a hand specialty, but they had just their orthopedic residency that I did. And then the University of Utah's added a sports residency, I think acute care, neuro, and they might have one or two others. I can't remember all of them. But so, as far as the question of who is residency good for, I think if you have a desire to specialize in a specific area, um, then a residency could be a really good option for you. So, for me, as part of the residency program, my preparation, what I was studying at the time and working towards was an exam called the board specialty exam in orthopedics, or the OCS is what you'll sometimes see that abbreviation behind like a PT's name, or if it's a sports, it'll be like an SCS, a neuro. They've got each of their own abbreviations. You can test for that specialty without doing a residency. So if people are like, well, I kind of want to do it, but I don't really want to do a residency, that's okay. The residency is a little bit of a fast track to it, though. So you'll do like a year of residency and then you can sit for the exam, where otherwise I think you'd have to practice for a full year and then apply for it. And so it'd almost be like a 2-year cycle before you'd be sitting for that exam. So there's a couple of differences there. Um, Most residencies, I mean, depending on where you go, like mine was paid at, I think, about three-quarter salary, which, worked out pretty well because you're making more money than you were when you were a PT student. So that's official. I think where people struggle is if they go out of school, practice for a while, and then to go back into a residency. That's where a lot of people probably would struggle just a little bit more. And to be totally honest with you, I don't know that I would have pursued residency if it wasn't for kind of all the chaos and stuff that ensued with COVID. Because when I graduated, it was 2020. The last 4 weeks of my internship got cut short because Intermountain cut off any student interaction in the hospitals at all, just due to COVID. And jobs pretty much completely just went away. Like nobody was hiring at the time. And I had this connection from where I chose to do my you know work as a student with Hand and Ortho, that they're like, hey, we've got this residency position that's open. And so I convinced my wife to move from here, Southern Utah, back up north again, which took some work to do, but she was agreeable. And we moved back up there and did residency, which was great. But yeah, I think had there been other opportunities down here, I'm not positive I would have moved back up there and done residency, but I feel like it was well worth it, and it advanced my career much, much more than I could have otherwise. So I
Cool.
don't know if I really answered your question.
No, 100%. Totally did.
I get some in there for people,
No, that's great. I think you definitely, when you're applying to schools, it's something to think about, but it's not something you need to have necessarily nailed down. Would you say
yeah,
that's true?
no, you can figure that out later. So,
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks, Tyson.
Yeah, great advice. And really kind of the last question in the pre-physical therapy, pre-PT realm would really be how early should you be preparing for PT school? And like what do you think should be the main focus as preparing for PT school?
mm, the main focus. I mean, I think the first part of your question, when should you start preparing? Probably as soon as you know. I mean, once you've made that decision, like, hey, I want to become a physical therapist, start preparing. It's a competitive application process. You both know that. Really, any graduate program is competitive, and so I think putting that preparation in early can be beneficial. I love what you're offering and what you're doing for people because a resource like this, I don't remember being readily available when I was going through the process. And so a lot of it was just looking at like PTCast and those other resources to see, what do my grades need to look like, looking at all the individual programs' websites and trying to figure out like what their prerequisites were. And then there's just a lot that you can get lost in with all of that. And so I think starting that process early, the mistake I see some students make is that they'll get close to graduation, they're like, okay, I want to apply to PT school. And then they'll start looking at programs and they're like, oh, well, I'm missing this prereq, or I don't have this many shadowing hours, or, I'm worried I'm not going to have someone to write my letters. I haven't done enough, whatever it might be. And then you're potentially delaying yourself another year or two, or you're submitting kind of a subpar application. And if you do that to the program you want to get into, there's a part of that application review process that we look at to see, has this person applied to our program before? Did they not get in, and if they didn't get in, was there a reason behind that? And so then I think, and again, I'm just talking personally here, this isn't the University of Utah's policy or anything, but if I see that, like, hey, this person's applied to this program a time or two, is there something either about their application or about this individual that made us not accept them the first time around? And have they improved that, number one? And so you're trying to kind of look through that through the lens of a detective and see, like, okay, have they gotten better over the last year since this application cycle? And so I guess long story short, trying to have your ducks in a row so that the first time you apply, you can hopefully be successful. And that's not to say that everyone is. I think there's a lot of people that will have to come back and reapply for programs. But if you can have your ducks in a row and be ready for that application process so that it's, you've crossed your T's, you've dotted your I's, everything looks really good the first time you submit it, that goes way, way further than having to come back a second or a third time.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. Like uh, one of the things we try to stress to students is being on time and having everything ready, right? Like you said, having your ducks in a row, because I mean, that's what you need to be successful in PT school, right? And eventually in your career is they want to know that they're accepting people who are organized, who can, get things in on time, who, like, because it's a lot of stuff, right? Your application is a lot of stuff. They're looking for people who have things organized, set up, ready to go, who are prepared type of people, right? And
Yeah.
so having your application look like that, obviously, is huge. So
Yeah, and there's a lot of programs now that are doing more of a rolling admission, where it used to be that they would have like an application deadline, everyone would submit by that deadline, and then they would start the review process and then just invite, a certain select number for interviews or whatever else. There's a lot of programs now that if you get your application in early, your odds of getting accepted are much, much higher. So I think, even more to that, like, get your stuff ready early and make sure it's good.
yeah. Um, so going along with this, topic of the applications and whatnot, obviously everybody thinks of a GPA, right? Like you need a good GPA to get into PT school, whatever. But what are some aspects of an application outside of just the GPA that matter most to, someone in an admissions committee, for example? What are some other factors that are important if you don't have maybe a great GPA?
I think, as part of that question, if there's certain classes, like core classes, that you've struggled in. So I can remember a few applicants I've looked at in the past that, let's say they took anatomy their first time and maybe they got a C in it or something along those lines. Like, go back again and get an A, whatever you have to do. Like, try to get that grade up as high as possible. And so I think that can be part of it, like going back and trying to, especially some of those core classes, anatomy, physiology, biology, chemistry, and then some of those others, physics, whatever, like the core prerequisites, like really try to have a good solid GPA in those areas. The overall GPA, I think personally, we don't look at or weigh quite as heavily, but I think the prerequisite GPA we look at pretty heavily. So that's part of it. I think the other part is that having, like I said, kind of a variety of experience can be helpful. I know there's a lot of applicants that they'll put down on their, PT application, like, oh, I had 2,000 some odd hours as a tech with this, outpatient orthopedic group or whatever, which is a lot of really good experience. But so much of PT, well, so much of the PT world exists without or outside of orthopedics too. And so I think having some experience in neuro settings or some kind of inpatient setting or acute or whatever else where you can have a little bit of variety, I think just increases the depth of the applicant. And I think it opens up more opportunities for you to have some experiences that you can draw on to when you're describing, writing essays and things like that. I'm trying to remember what other part of your question you had asked outside of GPA, I guess. What other valuable things there were? Oh, this was the other thing I was going to say. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Thinking out loud here as I'm going. The one thing that I noticed, so I applied for eight different programs when I went through the application process. I got accepted to 7, which I felt pretty proud of. And one of the things that came up in every single interview that I had was my degree. And so I waffled a little bit on what degree I wanted to do and direction I wanted to do. And like I said, I'd looked at a bunch of different health professions and finally decided on PT. By the time I did that, the degree I was finishing was an integrated studies degree in business management and sociology. And as you two probably know, that's not a common degree for someone that's applying to PT school. Usually you're going to see like kinesiology or exercise science or something that fits the prerequisites better, which is fine. Like, you want to get your prereqs and your degree done as quickly and as cheaply as possible. But like every single interview that I had was like, hey, I see that you have this background in business management and sociology. Tell me how you came to the conclusion that you wanted to be a PT. And then there's your opportunity to sell yourself, right? Like, okay, this is why I wanted to do that. Because I think part of the art and the science of getting accepted to PT school is that you have to stand out just enough that we remember you, but not so much that it's obnoxious, if I can put it that way. So that's my 2 cents there. Is like, it doesn't hurt to have a minor or some other kind of unique background that's like, oh man, I don't have a science background or a biology or kinesiology or whatever else. Like, as long as you've got something like that in the prereqs, and then you take the opportunities with your essays and your experiences and your interviews, if you have interviews, that kind of thing, like to sell yourself a little bit, that can go a long way.
I think that is such good insight that it really, like, you want to stand out. You want to be able to, what about you is going to help someone that maybe understands welding that, other physical therapists don't, or what is it that understands business or sociology? Like, you want to be able to stand out in the application because there are thousands of them. We had a stat that we shared a couple weeks ago that there are up to 90 to 100,000 applicants a year. That's a lot. That's a lot to think about. And so I think having that in the back of your mind, that how can I showcase myself in a confident way? I think you said it so well, of not being obnoxious, but yet confident, which I think is super important.
Yeah. And I know a lot of programs are looking at that in the lens of like, is this person going to represent my program well? Right. Like, if I'm the University of Utah DPT program, do I want Porter in my program? Right. Is he going to represent me? Do I want Mackay in my program? Is he going to represent this program and what we stand for really well? And for a lot of programs, I mean, the University of Utah's PT program has been around for a long time. It's really well established. It's had some incredible leaders, and people who have provided a bunch to just the profession of physical therapy as a whole. And so, in a real sense, we're standing on the shoulder of, giants in the industry. And as I'm looking at that through the lens of the program, yeah, I think I'm just looking at, is this person going to represent the program well? Do they have a skill set or something unique about them that I think they can bring to this to add to their cohort and support what we're trying to do as a program and support what we're trying to do as a profession?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that kind of helped me during my application process as well, is looking at my application like from the eyes of, an admissions committee, right? It's kind of a strategy I use like in my test taking, is I try to look at my tests like how the teacher wrote the test. Like what do they want me to actually understand from this question, right?
Yeah.
And it helps you weed out a lot of answers a lot of the times, right? And
Mhm.
I think reviewing my application and having other people look at it too, like, hey, if you were a PT program and yeah, you were looking at my application, like how am I reflecting myself through my application? Because you could be a great applicant, but maybe your personal statement isn't showing that, right? Or maybe it's, I think looking at your application from that perspective can help you see either some gaps or, okay, yeah, that actually it is looking pretty good. Like I'm looking like I could represent their program well.
Absolutely.
So even going as far as to, tailoring your every school has essays to write, right? For, their additional applications or whatnot. Most schools have those. And I think looking into every school as well has certain values and core, like a mission statement and core values. If you can even look at those and incorporate them into those as well, can help too. So hopefully that didn't go too far off the rails, but that perspective of an admissions committee looking at it, I think, is big time. So.
Yeah, it's perfect.
100%. Um, and I guess just kind of now as a PT, we'd love to kind of hear some kind of perspective now, what it's like being at the end of the road, I guess. I mean, we're in the middle here and we're trying to see the light at the end. But I guess what is something that surprised you coming out into practice as a physical therapist?
It's an awesome question. I might have to think about that for a sec.
That's okay. That's okay.
I think the the mental strain that it is to work in healthcare was probably something I didn't fully feel ready for. I think as a student, there's always this like overarching, hey, my CI is watching out for me and protecting me. And if I do something stupid, like they're there to help me kind of thing. And once you're like, and that's part of why residency for me was super helpful because there was still a little bit of that protective umbrella, but just less of it. And so, I'm still kind of standing on my own feet, but also learning how to walk and then run. I think once you're in the profession and you're building your own practice and you're networking with other clinicians and you're trying to find ways to help patients, like there's a lot of work and mental toll that goes into that, especially if you're trying to be a good clinician, right? Like I could give 3 sets of 10 clamshells to every patient in the world. And for some people that works okay and they can go home and sleep at night. For me, I can't. And I aspire to try to do a little bit more with my patients. And so I think the level of like mental fatigue and exertion it takes to sit down across from another human being, like listen to them carefully, try to help them solve their own problems in a way. Because I look at myself as a lot less of a problem solver, as more of just like a coach, right? And I know that term gets thrown around a ton and it's kind of whimsical and hokey and whatever. But if I can lead a patient to their own solutions, then I've created some kind of lasting change, at least in my mind, rather than me just like saying, hey, here's the exercises you have to do. They do them. Maybe they feel better. Maybe they don't. You're right. And maybe they just continue to go throughout their life without making any kind of changes. And so I'm looking at it through the lens of health behavior change. And so you talk about that, like teaching and learning class and some of the others that you have in school that like personally I didn't always like. But looking back now, I can see how much that really influenced my ability to communicate with a patient and lead them to kind of their own conclusions. Um, I'm not going to profess to be the best at it. I'm still learning. So you talk about how you're in the middle of it. I'm still very much in the middle of it, right? We're all in the middle of it. And I know I probably had said to your class at one point, like the day that you feel really, really comfortable probably is the day you're not learning anymore. And so, getting to the point that you're okay with the discomfort and you're okay with some of the mental fatigue and you're recognizing that you're still growing and you're still learning. And even though it's difficult, like you're doing it because you have a sincere love and care for treating your patients. I think that is really where the reward comes, at least for me.
100%. We really appreciate your vulnerability of sharing that, but more importantly, we appreciate your passion as a physical therapist. It's evident. I mean, we've been able to experience it firsthand, being able to learn from you, but even just in these past 20, 30 minutes of chatting with you, it's evident. Like you care about your patients, you care about this profession, and being able to help people live their life, and not only as patients, but be able to help us as physical therapists. And I'm super grateful. We both are. We really are grateful for your wisdom in that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
No, same thing from me. So we appreciate you, Tyson. You're a good role model for us and for, PPT students. Come. So, why don't you tell the people, few people that will have listened to this and watch this, how can people reach you, Tyson? They have
Um,
questions.
I mean, I give all of my patients my cell phone number, so people can reach me however, whatever way they want to. I mean, I'm on Instagram. I've got a couple different
Instagram.
pages. I've got a personal one. I've also got a PT one I need to actually start doing something with. I think it's like Tyson Winder DPT or something along those lines. Let me go look.
Well, we'll share you this so you can. This will be a good real
Okay,
thing for you. Yeah.
there we go. Yeah. Tyson Winder underscore DPT. The last time I posted something was 2023, so I got to do better about that and trying to kind of represent the qualities of the profession. But that's a goal of mine. I think for 2026 is to do a little bit more on that page. So that's one good way to connect with me. I'm always happy to talk. I'm always happy to read essays. I'm happy to look over applications and give kind of my feedback. And like I said, not from a university standpoint, but just my personal opinion and kind of providing some insight in those ways. So always happy to be a resource for whoever needs it. I think we're all in this profession together and trying to help each other out. So it's the least I can do, and I just feel like I'm paying it forward for a lot of great mentors and people that helped me.
Like, yeah.
Remember that.
Well, thanks, Tyson.
Yeah, thank you guys.